Hello divas, I hope you're well and welcome back to another episode of the Other Girls Club podcast. Happy Thursday, or whenever you're listening to this. Right, we're going to get into some deep emotional topics today, but before we do that, I have to tell you about the Doctor Who premiere. Oh my Christ, I went to the Doctor Who premiere Monday evening, so a couple of nights ago. I was just absolutely gagged. Like, I've been to a few premieres and like screenings and stuff, like as my time as like a creator. This is generally the most exciting one I've been to, probably on par with the Wicked premiere. The Wicked premiere was just insane because of the scale of it, and obviously like it's Wicked, you know, like it is an insane moment. Everyone wanted to be there, and Ariana and Sophie were there. Crazy night. But Doctor Who, this show is so special to me. I've loved this show since the night it came back 20 years ago in 2005. I obviously wasn't around for the original Doctor Who, but then from the second it came back in 2005, I was locked the fuck in. My dad was like, hey, I think you'll like this show. It's a bit geeky. It's a bit, you know, no offense, I think you'll like it. And I was like, cool, Dad, I'll lock in. Locked in I was. But I'm so excited Doctor Who's going back for another season. I wish I could review the first episode, because that's what we watched. I think I'm allowed to say that. I hope I'm allowed to say that. But yeah, that's what I watched at the screening, episode 1 of the new season. But I can't review it or tell you anything about it, because it's under embargo until it actually drops. So sorry about that. But the next episode of this podcast should be a very special Doctor Who theme. So yeah, look forward to that next week. And I think you guys are going to love the new episode as well. I hope you do, because I do. I think one of the things that's so special about Doctor Who, for me anyway, obviously there'll be loads of people who watch it now who didn't watch it as kids, who didn't watch it when they were like in 2005 or like even old Who. I think one of the things for me that is so special about it is it kind of feels like a little bit of like reclaiming a bit of my childhood almost. Like, I saw a quote a few months ago, and it was basically something along the lines of getting into your late 20s and getting older is basically just a process of coming back to your childhood self and reclaiming like all of those parts of yourself that maybe you were ashamed of, or you let go of, or you outgrew because you thought they weren't cool anymore. And I mean, there was never a time in my life where I was like, oh, Doctor Who's not cool anymore. To be honest with you, I was not a cool child, so I never had that thought process. But Doctor Who does give me that feeling of the new stories are brilliant, and they're starting new conversations and they bring something new to it. But also, even when I watch that old episodes, like there's such a special place for that show in my heart. Like, that show is just my entire heart. I love it so much. And I think no matter where it goes, I think it will always be my favourite show. Like, I love House of Dragon, Game of Thrones, Yellow Jackets. Like, there's so many brilliant new TV shows that I love, but Doctor Who will just always have such a special place in my heart because of that reason. But I thought that was very important to bring up this episode, because this is going to be a really personal episode for me. It's actually something that I have been quite open about online, but more in sort of like snippets and posts sort of here and there. But I don't know if I've ever actually really sat down and like had a chat with you guys about it and actually really spoke about, I mean, I assume it will be in the title of this podcast, my experience with being estranged from my mother and just the whole sort of journey with that. And there's a few reasons why I've never really spoken about it in depth. One, because look, when you put anything on the internet, you get like everyone's opinion on it. Like I often like will do content here and there talking about it, and I will always get someone comment, give me their opinion, completely uninformed, completely because no one knows the full story except me. And they'll comment things like, this is weird, you should try and work it out, or blah blah blah. Like, I had someone comment my post like last night, like, this is weird as fuck, blocked straight away. You kidding me? On my phone, on my internet, you're gonna tell me about my relationship to abuse and estrangement? No, I don't think so, buddy. Not on my phone. Blocked straight away. It's just one of those things that I don't need other people's opinion on. But also as well, whenever I do talk about it, I always get such an influx of messages and comments from people who have been through the similar thing, or are potentially about to go through a similar thing and maybe need some words of encouragement, or they need to see that someone else has been through it and that they are okay. And that kind of makes me want to talk about it. But it's one of those things that I'm like, I wouldn't want to talk about it every day, but I do think there is a time and a place in my content to talk about it, because it is a huge part of who I am and my experiences. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I wanted to talk about it in this episode because obviously it was Mother's Day the weekend just gone, and I was going to do last week's episode on it, to be honest with you, but The days leading up to Mother's Day for me are always very weird, and I just couldn't really find the words to put together to actually formulate a cohesive conversation about the topic. And so I thought, right, I need to just let Mother's Day come and go, experience that again, like I do every year, and then I'll probably have a better clue of like what I actually want to say on the topic. And I do. But Mother's Day is a difficult day for me every single year, and I spoke about this last year when I said about, look, it's been like over 10 years for me now since I estranged from my mother. But Mother's Day doesn't get necessarily easier every year, and I've kind of come to terms with the fact that I'm okay with that. Like, I think it's actually a good thing for me to be able to sit with, right, this day feels a bit shitty. I'm a bit upset that this is my situation on this day, because I think I went for a lot of years in my teenagehood where I was kind of like, well, I didn't care about it. That's just, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I kind of really, I saw I'm going to give you context to what happened in a bit, but I kind of saw what happened to me. It's like, oh, but that's just, it is what it is sort of thing. And I didn't give myself space to like feel those emotions, and they would come out in the most like obscure behaviours. Like, they would come out in such rage and such frustration in completely unrelated topics. So I think it's normal that on Mother's Day it gets to this day where I'm reminded of, oh yeah, I was put through this thing and I had to make this decision. I'm okay with feeling upset and feeling angry and feeling frustrated and feeling some sort of grief on Mother's Day. I'm okay with all of that if it means that the rest of my life comes with the freedom of the decision that I made. And I'm also absolutely okay with giving myself to feel that emotion rather than just suppressing it and going, oh, well, it is what it is, that's my situation and that's the end of it. No, like, it's a really horrible thing to not have a mother in your life, whether you're estranged or whether because you've lost your mother or, whatever the scenario is. It's not a normal scenario to not have your mother in your life, and I think it is normal and good to feel all of those things and to give yourself the space to feel all of those things. Now, that going into the ins and outs of all of my personal trauma and everything I was put through as a child in my teenage years, just because I don't feel like it's necessary for me to do that, but also like, yeah, it is still family business, and yeah, there's just some elements that I'm not open to sharing. But to open up a little bit, I estranged from my mother when I was, I think, 15. I have no concept of time anymore since COVID, but I think I was 15, maybe just turning 16. And I made that decision to estrange from her when my parents were getting a divorce and I was going to be moving in with my dad anyway. So I made that decision then as the catalyst of, once we're not living in the same roof anymore, I don't want anything to do with you. And the reason I made that decision wasn't just because we had one argument or she pissed me off or, our relationship was a bit tense. We did not have a relationship. That's the thing I always try to say to people. It's like, yeah, I knew my mother my whole life up until I was 15, 16. We did not have a relationship. And this is where I think people really project their ideas of motherhood and their experience with their mothers onto you, because I cannot really tell you anything about my mother, about her character, about her personality, because she was almost like a figure in my house. It wasn't like I knew this woman, I had a relationship with this woman. There was never any kind of deep emotional connection there. And I always felt really weird as a child. I always felt really strange as a child because I didn't feel anything from my mother. And I used to always see kids in my school and other people my age and like even older talk about their relationship with their mothers, how amazing their mothers are. And I just always remember thinking like, is there something wrong with me? Because I don't feel that. And it took me a while to cotton on to, no, that bond hasn't been created because you have been neglected and that relationship hasn't been nourished from her side. But as a child, I always felt like there's something wrong with me because I don't feel anything towards my mother. And at times I really, really disliked, but I couldn't as a child put my finger on what that was. I just saw what other people had and that wasn't my experience and that's not what I felt. And I felt like I was in the wrong for it. And it was such a stark contrast to how I felt about my dad. I mean, like, if you follow my content, you'll know me and my dad are super, super close. And I always just instantly had such a bond with my dad, and I understood I understood that relationship between my dad, and I cared for my dad, and I wanted to be around my dad. And when my dad was at work, I really missed him. And, you know, like all those normal things that kids feel towards their parents, I felt that towards my dad, but I never got it with my mother. And I always felt like it was because an issue on my side. But the truth of it was, obviously, it was not my fault as a child. I was a child, and that relationship wasn't nourished. It wasn't built on her side. But of course it wasn't my fault as a child. Of course it's no child's fault. But the truth of it is, the relationship wasn't built because there was not only a withholding of love there was no genuine love, care and protection. There was a withholding of like basic human needs, things that children just need in order to survive. Like, I'm talking like withholding of food, withholding of like lunch money. Like, I remember by the end of us living in the same house together, like, I just stopped eating. Like, she wasn't making meals for me. I was being sent to school without any food, without any money to buy food as well. I remember like my friends at school having to give me their change so that I could buy lunch. So not only was there with this withholding of love, and there was no genuine love, care and protection, there was the things that like children just need to survive. And that element of safety as well. Like, I feel like I never had that safety and security of not just like physical danger, but just calmness in my house. Like, I felt like my whole entire life and childhood and developmental period was basically just forged with sidestepping around her moods. Like, you would have to watch everything you said and did, and not even just to her but to other people as well, because she would want to feel, I felt like anyway, like she would want to feel like she had you under complete control. And if she didn't, and if she saw, I felt like if she saw you had a closeness with other people, even like my other side of the family, like my dad's side, I felt like if she saw you had that closeness, she would punish you a lot with silent treatment. And the thing about silent treatment is, if you've lived with someone who does silent treatment, you know how cruel it is. It is even crueler to do it to a child who doesn't understand what's going on. And I felt like a lot of my life was basically forged in silent treatment. It's really manipulative, because it basically, whenever anyone does silent treatment, it is just a manipulation tactic to get you to bow over to whatever they want and to get their own way. And it is a control tactic to remember who's in control, because no ordinary person can live that way. And I'm not just talking about for an hour, for an afternoon. I'm talking like it could go on for weeks. It would happen when we would go on holiday. Like, we would be on a lovely family holiday and she would still be doing that shit. I remember when I was really little, and I mean kind of like, I think under 10 maybe, would kind of get me to go through my dad's wallet or take his spare change and, you know, find information out through like his mobile, make me go down his mobile and things like this, and like would basically kind of use me just as a pawn for whatever she wanted. And as long as I was being helpful to what she wanted, I got that attention. It was not love or affection, but I got that attention from her, which everyone wants from their mother, obviously. But yeah, and then lots of other stuff. But as I said, there's still so much that I'm not comfortable to talk about on this platform. But things that gives you sort of like a general gist of kind of the kind of relationship that I'm talking about. So when I was saying I'm estranged with my mother, I'm talking this is the environment that I grew up in. This was my relationship with her. It wasn't other people's. My experience of a mother was nowhere near what a normal person's experience is with a mother. It's not like we just had one argument and we fell out and I went, fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore. It was not like that. And when it came to making that decision, it was really weird, because it wasn't like I had a moment where I was like, oh, I'm gonna estrange from her. When we get out of this house, I'm just not gonna talk to her. Like, there was never, for me, it wasn't even like a decision I felt like I had a choice in. To me, it literally was a no-brainer. It was something that I had to do in order to survive. And I mean, like, survive in terms of like my safety for me as an individual, but also if I wanted to grow and become the person that I wanted to be, because I was only 15 and I had dreams of going to uni and doing all of these things, and I just knew that if I wanted to be that person and if I wanted to do all those things, I would never be able to do that under her gaze and with her anywhere in my orbit. And there was nothing to save, there was no relationship to save, so for me it was just a no-brainer. It wasn't a tough decision. I know for a lot of other people it is a really tough decision, but every relationship is obviously so unique and so different. But for me, it wasn't it wasn't that tough decision for me. Estraining from her and my parents getting divorced was the biggest relief I have ever actually felt in my entire life. Everything that came before that was the hard bit. Growing up walking around eggshells, having basic like human needs withdrawn from me and withheld from me, not growing up with her love and affection, growing up with her constant scrutiny and using me as a pawn for her own sort of manipulation, that was the hard bit. Constantly being in fear that I was like not doing things right for her, or that I wasn't, serving her in some sort of way. That was the bit that I found tricky my whole life. And then when it came to actually being free of her and it felt like starting a new life. That was the easy bit. But just because it was an easy decision to make doesn't mean that it was the one that I wanted to make. In an ideal scenario, of course, we would sit down, we would talk about things, and we would like make it work, and we would maybe compromise. But the thing that I don't think people understand about narcissistic like parental relationships or narcissistic relationships in general is that there is no compromise. Because the only compromise that can realistically happen that they would be happy about, that the narcissistic individual involved would be happy about, is you bowing over and giving into their demands and what they expect of you. There is no compromise in terms of, oh, okay, well, I'm going to change my behaviour this way and you need to be more receptive in this way and blah, 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 blah. The compromise is you go under their complete control. And the thing that I find so mystifying about this is that I think if this was a romantic relationship, I think people would be more understanding of it. If you said like, oh, I had a narcissistic boyfriend and he, was doing all of these things, was, treating me the way that I felt like I was treated, you would immediately say, oh yeah, break up with him. You don't need him in your life. That's not safe. That's not a safe environment. That's not a healthy environment. You deserve better than that. But because it's our parents, I think people feel like you have to have some kind of like blind loyalty to them. And especially when it's your mother. There will absolutely be people who would say this about like someone's father as well, who would say like, oh, it's still your dad, blah, 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 blah. But I do feel like when you have someone who is estranged from their mother or doesn't have a relationship with their mother or doesn't get on with their mother, you are more likely to get people say, oh, but it's still your mum, or you should work things out, you only get one mum. People will still say that, yes, if you have a dad. And having the strained relationship with your dad and not knowing your dad is obviously hard. I'm not disputing that. Like, that really impacts a person. And that probably is because of the patriarchy and the misogynistic way that we view a family unit, I guess. There is a lot of pressure on women to hold the family together. So when you say to someone like, oh, I don't have a relationship with my mother because it was abusive, it was neglectful, it was, unhealthy in XYZ ways, they can't compute it, they don't understand it because it doesn't fit their preordained idea of what a mother is and what a woman's place in the family unit is. It's just unthinkable to some people that a mother would behave in that way. Like when I would say to people, I don't speak to my mum anymore, I don't have anything to do with my mum, I actually find that people are more understanding of it now, because I've got to give you context of the time that I went through this, right? I was 15, so that would have been 2011, 2012. So I was like still in secondary school, so that's high school for if you're American. And even though it is only like just over 10 years ago, the cultural climate was very, very different. I feel like so much has changed societal wise in that time. And I do feel like even now people are so much more understanding of family units being built differently and people coming in all different shapes and sizes family wise. But back even just those few years ago, things felt very, very different. And I was a 15-year-old kid, I was a child, and I was being made out to be some kind of villain. Yes, from her side of things, like obviously she was making me out to be, this is the thing, right? I was made out to be some fucking devil child. I was made out like I was literally like a nightmare kid, like someone you'd see on Super Nanny, when the truth of it was, I was in my damn room every night studying my ass off through all of this, through reconciling and realising that, oh, I think I've been neglected and abused my whole life. My parents are now getting divorced, going through all of that, listening. I would be in my room studying my ass off, getting A's, A stars, doing all of that because I was like, I need to get to uni, I need to get the fuck out of Basildon, and I need to make something of my life because I'm not staying here and I am not becoming whatever the fuck that is. And I put my head down, I worked for it, and I'll be honest, maybe that wasn't the healthiest way of dealing with it, and maybe I put way too much pressure on myself as a child, but oh my god, I think in some ways it saved me a lot. I was not this devil child. I was not this evil child. I don't think any child ever is. I think whenever you get any child behaving that way, it's because of a reason. Children aren't evil, you know? And yeah, I was sarcastic as hell. I might have had a short temper. I might have acted out in some ways because of what I was put through, because I was trying to understand what happened to me. And I was trying to make sense of what I was going through. But yeah, as I was saying, I do think people's perceptions on family units have changed even in that short time. It's just over 10 years. I mean, it is a long time, but it is a short time in terms of how we've progressed as a society. And I think we are just more understanding of family units and family struggles a lot more than what we were even just 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. Because all of that of what I said about me being made out to be this devil child and this, you know, I did something wrong. Yes, that was coming from that side of the family and everything, but it was also coming from people that I would just tell about, you know, about that. Oh, I don't have anything to do with my mother. You get people say like, oh, you never talk about your mum, you know. People would say that, you never talk about your mum, like, oh, what happened to your mum? People would just assume she'd die young, because I'd always talk about my dad, so they'd be like, oh, what happened to your mother? Or it come to Mother's Day, they'd be like, oh, what are you doing? And, you know, I didn't have a stepmom then, so I've only recently started celebrating Mother's Day with my stepmom in the last few years, so there'd be so many years where people are like, what are you doing Mother's Day? And I'd be like, oh, nothing. I'm probably going to work. I'll pick up an extra shift or something because I don't have a mother to celebrate with. And I'd explain, oh no, she's not dead. I'm just estranged from her. We don't have a relationship. And I have had like strangers or like customers from when I worked in retail, or people that I worked with, people that I knew, just look me in the eye and be like, oh, what did you do? I could not believe it, that for me knowing what I'd been through, me knowing my truth of, you know, my lived experience, and then to have people turn around and be, oh, what did you do? You must have done something bad. It's automatically this idea that there couldn't possibly be something she did or something wrong with her character. She couldn't have ruined the relationship. I must have been this devil child. And I think that affected me in a lot of ways in my teenager, especially when I went to uni. I remember just feeling like I was a bad person for so many years, and it wasn't even that obvious to me that I had that feelings, but I always just had this feeling that people didn't like me and that I kind of would never really fit in, and that I just must be a bad person because, you know, if your own mother doesn't even want to bond with you, like, then I remember thinking so clearly there must be something so innately wrong with me, baked into my blood and my being and my core of who I am, because if your own mother doesn't want to take time to even bond with you as a child, what kind of person must you be? And I think when I was in my late teenage years, from when I went to uni, I think I was very angry, and I think I had a lot of anger deep inside me, and I think it would come out a lot, and I would always constantly seek out drama in so many different ways, whether that was friendship arguments or relationship drama and things like that, because I almost wanted to be proved right. It was almost like it would be easier for me, have it confirmed for me that yes, there is something wrong with you and you are just evil. You are a demon child. All of that is correct. Everything that people say and think about you is correct. It would be easier to just accept that, and to just accept that I am the villain. Then it would be to unpack that maybe there is something wrong with her. And I think a part of that was I'd never heard anyone speak about the fact that they were estranged from their mum. I knew of people not knowing their dads and not having anything to do with their dads, but I'd never heard of anyone being estranged from their mother and choosing to not have a relationship with their mums. That was until I got to uni, and when I got to uni, I don't know whether it was just because of like who I naturally gravitated towards, but at one point I had like a whole mini group of friends, people that I knew who also didn't have relationships with their mother, and it was such a relief to finally almost like look out into the world and see that dynamic reflected back to me. It was obviously horrible that people are going through the same thing, and you know, because you understand that pain, you understand what they must be going through, and that's horrible to think of your friends going through that, but was selfishly a relief because I thought, wow, okay, maybe that's not just me, maybe it wasn't just a me problem. And I've really, especially I'd say in the last few years, really found that comfort in not just friends, obviously friends, yes, but people that I would consider to be chosen family. I talk a lot about chosen family in my content and just my general life, really, because we place so much importance on family and the role of the family unit. And yes, of course, in an ideal world, everyone would have a perfect relationship with their blood family and everyone would have a strong family unit. But there are a lot of people around the world where maybe it's not even just because they've been in abusive scenarios with their family. Maybe it's because they were disowned by their family. Maybe their family were ill. Maybe they've had to move across the world for work. Maybe it's a multitude of reasons. This is what I'm saying about family dynamics are so complex and unique, and I think it's so wonderful now that chosen family is almost becoming more mainstream. It's obviously always been a really big term and a really big concept within the queer community. I think back to the idea of like a house. You have like a family house as a queer person, that would be like your chosen family. And I feel like it's becoming more normalised that your family isn't just people you share blood with, it is people who you choose to have in your life and to have that access to you. Because to be someone's family is a very specific, unique, intimate bond. It's more than just being a friend, an acquaintance or a work buddy. Like family is, for me at least, it is such a special and intimate bond. And it goes beyond just being a friend. And I think since now I'm in my late 20s and I'm a lot older and I've got a lot more to reflect on since everything in my childhood happened, shall we say. I've had more time to process it and stuff like that. And I feel like leaning more into my chosen family and having more people who aren't blood into my family and to really build up my community and my village and my family unit, I really feel like it's helped me heal from all of this in so many ways. And one of the main ways is realising that I do have that capacity to love and connect with family. Because not having a connection, an instant connection with your mother, I did start to question, like, is there something just wrong with me that I just won't be able to connect with anyone? Am I never going to be able to connect with anyone? And because of the way that she taught me how relationships are, like, they are transactional. Like, I would see that she would only have relationships if they could service her and benefit her in some way. She was getting more out of the person. I thought for so many years that there was something wrong with me and that I would never be able to have genuine connections and relationships like that. Not even just romantic, but also, yes, like friendships as well. And I look back on my teenage years, especially, you know, around the time that everything was happening when I was 15, 16. I think back to some of the relationships and dynamics that I had in my life, and I have a lot of guilt and shame there from the way that I've treated people, because I was using like mechanisms and ways of connecting with people that she had taught me, and they were all transactional. It was all manipulation, it was all control. There was no genuine bond or connection there, and I don't think that I'd properly learned how to connect and form a bond with anyone until I got to uni, until I'd met Dan. I think I got to uni, I met Dan, and I think just instantly he saw straight through me, and I feel like I saw straight through him, and we just connected in that way. And it really taught me how to genuinely care for people and how to just form relationships. I don't know if I would have, or maybe I would have much later in life, it wouldn't have happened as soon as it did, because it was only a few years after everything had happened, maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't think I would have learnt genuine love, care in a two way. Is that right? Yeah, in like a giving and receiving way, because I had received love like throughout my life, my younger life, from like my dad and his side of the family, and obviously, but there was so much else going on there that it wasn't until I met Dan that I learned how to really give it back but also receive it properly. And I feel like because he was meeting me at this point in my life where it was post being estranged from my mother, yes, only a few years, but it was post her, it was after her, and he was meeting me for the person that I was that day that I met him. And I was still at a really bad place. I was 18, I was fresh at uni, had a lot of anger and everything bubbling inside me, but I really felt like he saw a lot of potential in me for the person that I wanted to be. And I really feel like the relationship I ended up developing with him allowed me to be that person. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to him and for that whole relationship. And I feel like that relationship really serves for me as a blueprint of what relationships should be. And I really feel like I didn't learn that until I'm in adulthood, because this is the thing about growing up in a place of neglect, or a place of, you know, it's not just like, oh, my mummy was a bit mean to me and now I cry when I drink red wine. You know, it's, you're a child and your brain is forming its understanding of the world around you. So when you are seeing relationships as a tactic of control and manipulation, when you're being taught restrictive food behaviours, like you don't eat if you're, like I don't cook for you if you don't do this thing for me, you know, when you're learning all of these things, when you're learning all of these abusive and neglectful behaviours, it forms the way your brain functions, because you are a child and those are your developmental years. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of emotion to be able to unlearn all of that and to be able to say, I think this is wrong. And even if at the time you might not understand what's wrong about it, there are so many things that I am learning throughout my life now. As I'm 30 next year, and there are still things that I'm learning about my childhood that I'm like, oh, that's not normal. Other people didn't grow up with that. That's not right. And I think it probably will be a continuous journey of continuing to unlearn things until I'm much, much older. But I would 100% do all of that over and over again and unlearn all of this shit and unpack it and try to be a healthier, safer version of myself than sit with the mechanisms and the thought processes that I was like taught as a kid. Because you'll hear people say a lot, oh, but you only get one mum. And it's like, yeah, I do. But I also only get one life, and I'm not gonna waste my adulthood. I'm not gonna lose my adulthood the way that I lost my childhood, because there is this fear looming over me that, oh, well, I only get one mum, so I should just accept all of that, and I should just lay down and accept everything that's happened to me and accept everything that's gonna come from having her in my orbit, because I only get one mum. Yeah, you do only get one mum, but you only get one chance at life. And just because someone is your mum, your dad, your granddad, your nan, your uncle, your cousin, like whoever it is, it's not even just about my scenario. Just because someone has some kind of title to you, some kind of connection to you, some kind of blood relation even, doesn't mean that you have to accept everything that they put you through. It doesn't mean you have to accept abuse, neglect, or mistreatment. I feel like abuse and neglect and mistreatment has been covered up, ignored, or even just not recognised for years because of these titles that we give out to family members and that family members hold. And so there are so many people that are probably walking around with so much hurt and anger inside them and unhealthy coping mechanisms because they've been through things that they won't recognise as mistreatment because it's come from someone with blood relation or with the title of a family member. And I do feel like Gen Z, and I am technically Gen Z, I kind of sit somewhere weirdly in between Millennial and Gen Z, where I don't really feel like any of them, but I do kind of connect with Gen Z more. And technically, because my birthday, I am like the oldest Gen Z. But I do feel like Gen Z, on a tangent there, I do feel like Gen Z are better at calling out unhealthy family relationships. And I do feel like the younger generations are getting better at saying, no, I don't care if you're family, this is wrong. I'm not going to be treated this way, and either you need to fix up your behaviour and we need to work on this relationship, or I need to put some boundaries in place. But back when I was saying and doing that just over 10 years ago, not a lot of people around me were doing that at that time, especially not at that age. It was very unheard of. And I do just, this sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I do give such props to younger me for being brave enough to carry through with that, even because I had so many people around me telling me that I was this, that and whatever, and that I'd made the wrong decision. And I feel so proud that I can sit here however many years later. I'm 29 now, so nearly 15 years later. I'm not 29. Oh my god, I'm 29 in a few months. I'm already aging myself. But I'm just so proud that I can sit here over a decade later and say, no, I was right. And I put myself first. And it was the right decision to make. And there were moments, maybe not straight away when I made a decision, because I was very firm in this is the right thing to do, but there were, fleeting moments throughout the years following that I was like, oh, is that the right thing to do? Could I have handled it differently? The thing that I always tell myself is like, you were the child. Like, you were the literal child in the scenario. And I think that's another thing people can't compute, because when I tell people this story and when I tell people bits. You know, I've not even shared the whole bloody lore with you here today, but when I tell people bits and pieces, they imagine it and they recreate it in their heads with me as an adult, and they see this person sitting in front of them who is fully grown and seems very, you know, reasonable. They don't imagine a child. They don't imagine someone as vulnerable as I was. And I was vulnerable. I was a literal child. So when people say like, oh, she was your mum, I'm like, yes, I was her child. And I was vulnerable and I needed safety and care and protection. And that was not given to me. And not only was that not given to me, I was willingly put in a situation that did the complete opposite of that. But I feel like, as we say, you know, these things are becoming more normalised, and I think that's only because people are talking about it more, because people are saying, oh yeah, well, I don't really have anything to do with my mother, whether it's a complete estrangement or whether it was, you know, I have boundaries in place, I only see her so many times a year, I'm only allowed to see her on such terms, blah 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 blah, I'm not seeing her until XYZ is done. I feel like having those conversations is really helping to improve the stigma around the situation. Because it's normalising the idea that just because someone is your family member, you don't have to accept XYZ treatment. And I think that does empower other people to go, oh, okay, well, I don't have to accept XYZ treatment. I don't have to lay down and take it. I can stand up for myself and say, no, I will not have a relationship with you until things improve or till, you know, you can behave differently, and if that doesn't happen, then I will walk away from this. And that's the thing, right? I think everyone's family scenarios are different, right? If you are feeling like you can no longer have a relationship with any kind of family member, it doesn't have to be a complete estrangement. My scenario was my scenario, you know, it's very specific to me, but there are people that I know that have had an estranged relationship from their parents or parent, maybe didn't speak for a year, couple of years, maybe 6 months. They were able to come to some kind of resolution and they were happy to proceed with a relationship. Every family dynamic is different, and I think only the individual knows what is best for you, and whether that is prioritising your immediate safety in, you know, separating yourself from that family member and then maybe having a relationship down the line, because you never know what might change in life. Your parents might surprise you, your family members might surprise you. And I think if you can get to that place where your parents can actually throw their hands up, your family members can throw their hands up and say, look, this was wrong, I'm sorry, and they can change their behaviour, that's the important part. I think that's incredible. And I think if you are able to proceed with a relationship, I think that's amazing. Not everyone can get there. I will never get there. And obviously I've spoken a lot about how I hope having these conversations makes it easier for other people to question their dynamics and the way that they're treated in their own lives as well, and empower them to make the decisions if they feel like that's the right one for them. But also as well, it's still something that I get so nervous talking about. Like, this has taken me so long to film. You guys won't notice because I'll cut out all the bits where I go blank and disassociate for 15 minutes, but you know, this is so hard for me to talk about personally, and there's so much that I can't talk about, or that I won't talk about, because it's just too personal, and there's, you know, too much personal information on the internet. It's never a good thing. This is already too much, but it's really hard for me to talk about, and part of that is because it's very emotional, and another part of that is because of the fear. There is so much control and power in holding fear over someone. And I really hope that one day I'll get to a point in my life where this person doesn't hold as much fear or control over me. But, you know, I'm not ashamed to admit it, that even after nearly 15 years of estrangement, there is still that fear there. There is still that control. Sometimes I can't help but feel like a little child again. And I feel scared sometimes, especially when I'm directly talking about the situation. Also as well, I wanted to read this out to you guys. I did a post about this on Instagram, which, to be honest, the comments on that and seeing how many people had also been through something similar is what inspired me to actually do this podcast episode and to bite the bullet, so to speak, and actually talk about it in depth. But someone commented on there saying, the full quote, often shortened to blood is thicker than water, is actually the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, implying the bonds forged through shared experiences and loyalty can be stronger than family ties. And that is crazy, because I have never ever heard that full quote, and I've had that quote thrown at me as an argument against my decisions so many times. So many people are like, blood is thicker than water, and it's like, oh, Oh, there's more to the quote. Oh, but I love that full quote, and it's so true. But to anyone who is listening to this and thinking, you know, you've been through something similar, or you are thinking of maybe proceeding with being estranged from your parents, your family member, whoever it is, and you're not sure whether it's the right choice. Like, only you are gonna know whether it's the right choice. I feel like in your heart of hearts, only we as individuals know what's right for us. But all I can say is I do not regret my decision one bit. I wake up every day with the freedom that I have and the safety and protection that I have given my own life. And I'm so happy every day with the decision that I made. I look at the person that I've been able to become and the things that I've been able to do, and I would not have been able to do the things that I've been able to do in my personal life, in my career. I'd not be able to be the person that I am today and that I am proud of being. I would not be able to do any of that without the decision that I made at 15. And yes, of course, there are days that I am sad, that I'm angry, that I am hurt by everything that happened. But all of the negative feelings that I feel are because of the things that I was put through that were out of my control. And sometimes I do sit here at home or I'm out and I see parents together and I think, God, I wish I had that kind of relationship with a biological mother, or I wish I had a biological mother in my life. And I miss the idea of having a mother. I don't actually miss the mother that I was given by the universe, because I don't know that person. I don't know that person. I didn't bond to that person. I miss the idea of a mother and what a mother should be. And I feel like I have missed that my whole life. But as horrible as those feelings are not going to be filled or alleviated by allowing someone into my life who does not care for me, who does not offer the basic principles of safety and protection, let alone respect, love and care. And I have received more love, respect and care from people who are not blood related to me. You know, it took a while, but I really feel like I have such good people around me. Whether that is, you know, my chosen family, my friends, and also as well, my stepmom didn't come into my life till I was 21. But in that less than a decade, the short time that she's been in my life, does not replace the idea of a biological mother. She doesn't replace my mother, but the relationship that she has offered to me and the grace and care that she has shown to me has been more than I ever received from her growing up. And you might feel like making this decision that you are going to isolate yourself or make yourself lonely. And that might be true. There might be, the next years of your life might be quite isolating. They might be lonely. But I'd rather be lonely and I'd rather be on my own and know that I've made the right decision and also be safe. But also as well, you never know who you're going to meet in the next year, in the next 2 years, next 3 years, next 5 years. You haven't met all the people in your life that you are going to care for and that you're going to love and that are going to love and care for you back. But if you are giving yourself to toxic, abusive, neglectful relationships, romantic, platonic, parental, it doesn't matter. If you are giving yourself to all of those, you are not allowing that room in your life to forge those other bonds. The ones that are going to care for you, the ones that are going to offer you love and safety. I would not have been able to bond with Dan the way that I did if I had met him while I still had my mother in my life. It's a really tough, heavy conversation. And it's also really hard for me to sit here and have this conversation when I can't tell you or don't want to tell you full details of my law and my story. So I really hope that I've kind of navigated this the best that I can. I feel like I have. I've really tried to. But it's obviously so personal, it's so deep, and it's so individual as well. My story is going to be different to every single person who is also listening to this. But I hope that if there are people listening to this who have been through something similar, that there is shared unity in some way, shape or form. And I hope that even though I don't have all the answers, I hope that seeing me be happy and comfortable within my decision offers you some kind of peace, or shows you that like peace is at least possible. You just need to give it a chance. And the thing about peace, right, is I think the road to peace and solitude is actually filled with a lot of violence. It took a lot of violence and rage to become this soft and to become this caring. But I am very, very glad that we got there in the end. And hey, I don't even think this is the end. I feel I've got a lot more learning to do, but we are definitely more there than we were 15 years ago. By ending this podcast the way that we do every week by sharing the way that I'm chasing joy this week, because chasing joy is a fundamental part of my life. And I think it's so important. And the way that I'm chasing joy this week is I'm actually going to see Usher in about an hour. I'm taking Kudzai, my friend Kudzai, to see Usher tonight. I got the tickets like over a year ago. So long ago. I bought them last year thinking they were for last year, and they weren't. So I was like, oh, that's ages away, and it's come around so quick. I almost completely forgot about it, to be honest with you, until a few days ago. So I'm going to see Usher. That'll be fun. I've seen some clips from the show, and he gets a bit freaky with it. And I'll be honest, I don't often go see straight male singers, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I do love Usher. He's such a talent, so I'm sure it'll be a good night. But I'm going to wrap this podcast up here, guys. I don't think I can talk any more about this, but I hope this episode has been insightful, helpful, or comforting in some way, shape or form. I would like to remind you that this is obviously a very sensitive topic, and to please be sensitive and tactile in the comments, please. Especially not just for my own safety and well-being, but also because there will be people watching this, listening to this, who have also been through a wide variation of different experiences on the topic. So please just be kind to one another and be graceful to one another. And I will see you in the next episode, which I'm hoping will be Doctor Who themed. Doctor Who themed, baby, let's go! Have a good week, guys, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye!